is ASMM Digital Small Business Connections. We're the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. I always have fun on this podcast. I think you know that. I hope you hear that in my voice. I hope you see it on my face. But it's more fun when I get to interview a friend. And today, that's exactly what I'm going to get to do. I'm going to get to interview a friend. I've interviewed my clients, I've interviewed a couple of friends, and I've interviewed complete strangers. But it's really when I get to talk to a friend that I feel like you guys are just going to sit out there and have your coffee and listen to me and my guest have our coffee and chat. And I think that's kind of a fun way to learn things. So that's what we're going to be doing today when I talk to Sara Evans. But before we start, I'm going to go back to begging and say, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I swear to God, my kids are going to kick me out of the house soon. They think I'm such a nerd for not having 1,000 followers on on YouTube. So please do go over and follow me on youtube.com/BreneAnnie. Also, I want to remind you that you can subscribe here wherever you're listening to the podcast. Please do subscribe. We're a small business. This helps us a lot. And I want to remind you that we're streaming live. So you should ask questions. Why? Because we have experts on the show. Today's expert is a career coach. This is what she does. She helps people find the careers that work for them, the careers that are going to enhance their lives. This is what she's all about, and I'm so excited about having her. So if you have questions, you're wondering about your job, you're wondering what you should be doing with your life, you're wondering if you're doing the right thing, this is a good time to come on and ask some questions. Leave a comment. We'll see it. I'll be able to ask her directly. So our guest today is Sara Evans. Sara, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. I was just writing down your youtube.com Brene Annie, because guess what? I have not subscribed, so I need to do that.
Oh, you do? See, I'm getting closer. One
little
subscription
one person at a time.
It helps a lot. So, Sara, tell everybody what you do, because I love what you do, and I think you can help people in so many ways.
Yeah, thank you. I am a career coach. I am also a leadership coach. So I use a mix of coaching and consulting as tools to help individuals who are looking for a job, wanting a job change or a career change, and also leaders within businesses who realize that there's more for them out there. They really want to figure out how can they maximize their leadership skills and become the leaders that they want to be.
And tell us, how did you come about this? How did you decide this is what I want to do? Because, I mean, you've kind of had to coach yourself, right?
I've had to coach myself, yeah. So I'm a psychology major back in college. I thought I would go into clinical psychology. And I went as far as taking my GRE and applying to clinical programs and realized, wait a minute, I'm not sure that's what I want to do. And I was in a 15-year career of marketing and communications. And it brought me to the University of Maryland, to the Smith School of Business, where I worked in the Career Center. And I was hired to help make sure that employers were taking our students and hiring our students. And I caught the coaching bug working with students and realizing that happy students were students that were actually hireable. And hired students were also happy students who rated the university positively. So I went back to school for industrial and organizational psychology with that dream of starting my own business, doing coaching, really helping people. I worked in organizations. I did organizational development for a couple of consulting firms, testing, selection, talent acquisition, change management, and actually landed what I thought was my end goal, my job at Marriott, and realized that my end goal, I worked in change management. I helped the Marriott, and when Marriott acquired the Starwood brand of hotels, I helped navigate globally the HR technology, make sure that we could merge Marriott and Starwood properties on Marriott technology. Then I got another role doing org design work and helped merge the teams succession planning. And I realized I still had the bug. I still wanted to start my own company. I wanted to work directly with people more.
Yeah. Well, and you did it during the pandemic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yes.
and while you were in the middle of either moving or buying a new house. I cannot remember.
Yeah,
which
I
one
just
it
do
was.
it all at once. It really works
Why
out for
not?
me. I was buying a house. I got a dog. Pandemic. All of it. Just bring it on.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So tell us the difference. What's the difference between consulting and coaching?
That's a good question. So consulting is really when you think of consultative, right? It's a service somebody pays you for where you give them advice, and it's often great advice because it's based on experience. And a lot of times, people come to me and they will want consulting. They want somebody. They don't want to look inside necessarily. They know what they want. They come to me and they say, Sarah, I really want you to help me get from point A to point B. What's the strategy? And so I'll share the strategy. I'll give them advice. I'll help guide them along a path that I know is tried and true and that tends to work. Coaching is very different than consulting. Coaching has to do with helping people really find the answers within themselves. I don't know anyone as well as they know themselves. And what I can do, though, is ask questions, very sort of thought-provoking questions that get people to think about how they do things, how they've done things, and realize that they have other options. And using a combination of coaching and consulting can be extremely powerful.
Yeah. It just occurred to me, and I hadn't really thought about it, but it's so hard sometimes when you have this problem and you cannot for the life of you figure it out. And it's just hard to get into your own head. And then somebody walks in and they ask you a question. And a good example for me is I was working with Karen Mitchell out on some things, and I think she's been on the show before, but one of the things that would happen to me at every Burgers and Bands event, Burgers and Bands for Suicide Prevention, for those who are listening and don't know about it, is people would come up to me and share their stories of how they had lost a child. And I would immediately, as an empathetic person, find myself really struggling and sad and really having a hard time. And she said this one thing. She says, "What if you just said, 'Thank you so much for sharing that'?" And I'm like, "How's that going to help?" And then I started doing it. "Thank you so much for sharing that" allowed me to put kind of a little wall here that accepted it and thought, "Thank you so much." It really was. But I don't have to feel those feelings. I don't have to go into where you are. So working with somebody who can just give you that little push in the right direction sometimes is what you need, I think.
And the push for you is different than the push for someone else, right?
Right.
And so I find that there's a lot of consultants who are well-intentioned and brilliant who say, "Hey, Anne, why don't you try this?" But if it doesn't work for you, then it's not the right solution, right? So I really think in order to help people, you have to help people understand themselves a little bit better sometimes and ask questions that provoke thought. And individuals who are really open to learning can see it as a really eye-opening, incredible experience where they are able to co-create solutions with me to whatever seems like a block for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go back to what she said. And I love that because it's kind of sneaky how she did that. My core value, one of my main core values is gratitude. And she brings that into everything we do. And she'll say, "So what if you were grateful for that?"
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, yes, if I were grateful for that.
So you bring up a very interesting point. Values, that's huge because everybody has different values. There's not one right way to job search. There's not one right way to lead. It depends on who you are, right? What works for you depends on what are your values? What do you feel comfortable with? What are your needs and your goals? And I just think it's really important that somebody working with you understand who you are and champion who you are. Otherwise, any changes you make won't stick.
Absolutely. I absolutely believe that. So, all right, you left corporate America. You started your own individual business. Talk a little bit about, was it scary? Is it scary now? You've had almost a year, I guess, or a little over a year doing
Mm-hmm.
this. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about what that process has been like.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's scary. It's more exciting than scary. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time. I have been thinking, when this happens, I'll do it. As soon as this happens, I'll do it. And I was planning on starting my own business, but I kind of said, I'll do that tomorrow. I don't have enough time to do that today. And I am so glad that I did, because there's never the perfect time, but I wake up every day and I absolutely love the work that I do. And I feel so lucky to be able to do the work that I do, that it really helps overcome some of the anxiety about making the jump and the change. And what's ironic is, I'm a change management. I did a lot of change management work for Marriott, and you can help guide people. You can believe. It doesn't make it any easier when it's your own change. It's hard. But what I tell my clients is what I told myself, and I hired my own business coach. So I am not above coaching by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's the most valuable tool in the world. I hired a business coach because I knew that I would find a million excuses and a million procrastinations. And I knew that if I really put my money where my heart was, that I would get there. And so one step at a time. It's just one step at a time.
I love what you just said about coaching and how you hired your own coach. And it occurs to me, that people do this, that they have careers, whether you're starting your own business or you're going into a career, without giving it a whole lot of thought as to what they're doing. And it's a really big part of your life.
Oh, it's enormous.
It's an enormous part of your life. And it's part of your, not just your life, it's part of your identity. People say, well, tell me about yourself. And you're like, oh, well, I'm an attorney, or, oh, I'm an accountant. Yeah. Your job is one of the first things that come up in a conversation. It's one of the first things that you tell people about yourself. So
absolutely.
Shouldn't you spend some time and some money to figure out, are you in the right place? Is this where you belong? And if not, where do you belong?
So it's interesting you say that, Anne, because for me, I think one of the biggest disservices that our education does for us at all levels is not having those conversations about how do you decide what you want to be when you grow up? What does it look like? How does that decision process evolve over time? And I like to think about the saying, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, or a woman, and you feed them for life, right? And I think people don't learn how to think about that type of issue, right? They know what they're good at, maybe they got good grades doing something, what makes good money, but they don't think about the full package of, okay, so this is who I am. This is the lifestyle that I want to have, right? Do I want to do I want to raise a family? Do I want to, am I somebody who likes to be seated, or somebody who likes to move around? Do I get excited and motivated by teams and people, right? If you don't do that search within yourself, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, because sometimes we think what we should want is different than ultimately what will make us happy.
Right. Well, and it occurred to me, I was talking to somebody recently, and they said, I want to go into this type of work. And they picked an area. They're like, this is the area, this right here. And I said, why? And I said, could you do any of the things that are under that umbrella? And they're like, no, this is the only thing. And I started thinking about the fact that we what was that? When we were little girls and we would do jump rope. And there was a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. It's like, there are 5 careers for you.
That's right. That's it. And if you were a woman 50 or 60 or 70 years ago, there really were only 4 real jobs for you.
Right, exactly. And these days, so I'm going to go back and use myself as an example. I wanted to be a writer. I knew from the time I read my first book that I wanted to write, right? But my parents kept saying, you're not going to make any money in that. Instead of saying, well, why don't you look at other areas? Yes, write. How can you write and make money?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the, so I started this business when I was 48 years old
Mm-hmm.
because I like to write. And being a marketing consultant means I get to write a lot and make money off of it. Right?
Yeah.
So your
Yeah.
career is not, it doesn't have to be so pinpointed. You can look at so many other areas of life and get what you want out of it. So
Well,
yeah.
yeah. I love that you said that, because to me, I mean, that's where, so marketing in and of itself comes in. I think if you see it as this narrow sort of, I've got to put on this hat right now, I am the writer, that you're really depriving others of seeing the full picture of who you are. And I think that people who are able to pull, we've made decisions all through our lives. You made decisions based on your values all through your life. And you probably, maybe not you, but most people discredit them, right? Like they were just, I just decided to do this thing. I just decided, like, they don't quite see how that makes them unique, how that makes them, they made decisions for a reason. Well, that's a selling point.
Right.
That's not oops, I made a mistake. That's part of who you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why you go back and you listen to Steve Jobs and his connecting the dots thing. That's all of that connects. And those are all who you are. So I love that. All right. So you start a business, you go out on your own.
Yeah.
How do you get clients? How do you find clients?
So, I mean, networking. And by networking, I don't I started my own business in time of COVID. So I'm not pounding any pavements, right? I'm not actually meeting very many people live. For me, it's all about sharing the word in a way that's real. So this is who I am. I am Sara G. Evans, Career Consulting. When I meet my neighbor outside and we talk about our jobs or our dogs or our lives, I bring up what I do. She brings up that she has a brother who might need this service. I work with her brother who tells me he has a real estate agent who knows somebody who needs some help, right? And it's really about incorporating your full self into all of your interactions, so that networking is not this sort of, okay, I put on my suit and tie and get my business card out and then I'm ready to tell the world who I am. I think it's really capitalizing on opportunities among friends even. I mean, I'm working with the older sister of a very close friend of mine to build that sort of trust and rapport.
Absolutely. One of my favorite clients I got because I struck up a conversation about her shoes at Grand Central Station in New York.
Wow.
I noticed her shoes and I said something about them and we started talking and I didn't even think twice about it. I did give her my card, but she and her husband called me when she got home and they hired me on the spot. It was amazing, but I wouldn't have considered that networking.
But that's the key to being a successful networker. They talk about elevator pitch, right? And I do believe in the elevator pitch, but the elevator pitch is about, elevator is really like a metaphor, right? For whenever you find yourself in a situation where you've captivated, you have somebody's attention, how do you connect with them in the way that they see you and they want to utilize what you have to sell? Not as a salesy pitch, but just by putting yourself out there as your normal sort of, your passion. Well, if you have passion for what you do and you feel confident about what your value is and your value proposition, and you're ready to communicate it, the world will come.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's go back to that. You said, it could be your sister. It could be your sister's friend, or it could be your friend's sister, right? Whoever it is you meet.
Right. Yeah.
And I think so many times people will discount. They'll go into a room. I was actually at a live networking event last week, and I watched people go into the room and go, well, I'm not going to talk to him. He's not going to do me any good. Right? I'm going to go this way. you don't know that he's not going to do you any good. You
Right.
don't know that he doesn't have something of value. I find that most people have something valuable. Actually, everybody has something of value to offer, even if it's just me learning something,
Yeah.
right? But often the people they know and the people they're willing to introduce you to without you asking, because you have a good conversation with them and treat them well,
Hmm.
it goes so far.
Oh, it does. And I think I've received referrals, and actually I've bought services from people from some of the most unexpected places. I mean, I think of it as just casting your net wide. If you're open
Right.
to receiving, just to be a social person, and it is hard, right? Because I am an extrovert. So for me, I actually really enjoy and get a lot of energy from chatting with people and meeting people. But there are
Right.
many people out there who are brilliant and they are not. So for them, they are introverted. They don't get their energy from the outside. It feels very overwhelming,
Right. Right.
all of the
Exactly.
networking, and it feels fake. And so people have to come up with their own strategy, right? What works for
Right.
them. I don't think there's a one size fits all for that either.
No, no. And I love meeting people, but one of the things that I use personally, because I get nervous especially in a networking event, is I made it a point to just introduce people.
Mm,
That's all I do. I go into the room and I look and I say, "Oh, he should meet him, or she should meet her."
you're a
I'm
connector.
I'm
Yeah,
connecting people, and
yeah,
that goes a long way for me, right? It
yeah.
helps me a lot personally. So, and it's more comfortable than me going in and saying, "Hey, I'm Ann and I do marketing," right? You know,
So this is one of the things that I work on with my clients, right? It's not just a one way to network. Who are
right,
you? What kind of job are you looking for? What kind of personality do you have? How do you make that work to how do you use your own integrity and your own knowledge of yourself to do it in a way that's authentic for you?
right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. All right. So tell me, I've got a job. Not sure what I think about it. I
Mm.
call you. What does
Hmm.
that look like? Where do we go from there?
Yeah. So the first thing I would do is just have a free conversation. I'd welcome an opportunity to chat, because in order to choose, I think choosing a career coach is a big one. And you really want to make sure that you feel comfortable with me, and that I feel comfortable and feel confident that I can help the person that I'm chatting with. So if you were to come to me, I would chat with you, and then I would offer you a free coaching session. I like to call it a discovery session, a trial session, where I would demo for you what it would feel like to be in a coaching session with me. Um, I After that point, assuming that you felt there was value in it, and assuming that I felt that there was value in us working together, the next step for me would be setting up a strategy session. And it's a 75-minute Zoom conversation where you would fill out a questionnaire beforehand, where I would ask all sorts of questions about your dreams, your wishes, your experience, where you have felt success and where there's opportunities for more success for you. And then I would walk through. I have an assessment that I do of the four quadrants of where I feel individuals can benefit from working on in order to fully prepare for a change. And after going through that 75 minutes of the strategy session, the potential coachee would have my plan, a strategy for how I feel that we can work together to help them reach their goal. And then you would have that plan and you could say, yes, Sarah, this is exactly what I want to do. Or, hey, can we talk a little bit about the plan and then move forward? Or perhaps you decide that you don't want to move forward, and that's okay too. But it's your plan to keep for your own self knowledge.
That is really valuable. As a marketer, I'm sitting here going, should you be giving that away for free? But that's awesome that you do.
Well, it's not free. The strategy session is $197.
Okay, good.
So that is not free.
That is not
Um,
free.
that
So,
is not free,
okay.
but there's no additional commitment that's required.
Okay. That's wonderful
So
though.
yeah, so you at least get for a small amount of money, you get not only do you get a taste for free of the coaching, right?
Right.
Because I use coaching as a tool, but then you get
Right.
to see the strategy session is a little more the consulting side, where I would say, okay, now that you've told me everything about you that you're sort of aware of, here's how I think that I can help you. And you can either
Right.
walk away with the strategy and decide not to move forward, or more often people do move forward because by the time they've committed to that 197, they're often realize that they want the help.
Right. Absolutely. I wrote down a note while I was sitting here, and you were talking, which is those questions are so valuable. They're so valuable. And honestly, I think I would buy a book of just questions
Mm,
because the older I get, the more I realize I need to know more about me and what I'm putting out in the world.
mm.
Right?
Well, you
Because I
are,
think,
yeah,
yeah, we
yeah,
put stuff out in the world that we don't even know we're doing.
no,
So, yeah. So I think it's
yeah.
such a valuable thing. I love that you got that. So,
So I love that you said that. I mean, not everybody is as open to learning about themselves. I have clients who say, "I love to learn. I'm really open," and they don't like having questions asked of them. They feel that it's Socratic method, right? They're like, "What is this? The Socratic method? I thought you were going to tell me what to do." But the
right,
people who get the most out of it are those who come to the table like I do, curious.
right.
And my goal, I think of it as like, I think of myself as a flower shaker,
Okay.
right? My clients come to me and they say, you know what? I realize there's more there to me. And I need somebody to kind of poke the bear a little bit. Ask me some
Right,
questions, make me think,
right, right.
right? And I do it
Because
in
it's
a kind
hard.
way, but
Right.
shake.
Yeah. It is hard. It's hard to look in yourself. And at least my age, and I don't know whether younger people had this or not, but my age and older, there was this whole self-centered, don't be self-centered, don't be self-centered.
Mm,
And anytime you thought of yourself, that's where you kind of found yourself leaning. Oh, I might be being self-centered. But if you can't look into yourself, putting yourself out there in the world is very difficult. And actually, that leads to this last thing that we were going to talk about, which is personal marketing. And we talk about personal branding a lot. People think of their
mm,
personal brand a little more now than they used to.
mm-hmm.
But they don't think about their personal marketing and putting
Yep.
themselves out there. So talk a little bit about how you create a personal marketing strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step to a personal marketing strategy is to know what your goals are and what makes you uniquely qualified to be whatever you want to be. So, for example, the first step is, what exactly are my goals? How do I want to show up in the world? What are my values, and how do I want to walk toward those values, right? And then
Right,
once you're clear on, okay, these are the values that are most important to me. So let's say you, Anne, you're a connector, right? That's a really
right,
important part of your value proposition. And
right,
so when we talk about your marketing strategy, really being able to communicate, okay, so if that's very important to you, then individuals who would be interested in hiring you or who would find you interesting or who would want to connect with you, they should know that about you, right? So, how
right,
do you weave certain words into your resume? How do you ensure when you have conversations in different parts of your life, whether it's on this podcast, whether it's out, at a networking event, whether it's at a family event, whether it's in chatting with your spouse, right? How do you
right,
embrace who you are and make it part of your persona?
right, right. Well, because you oftentimes don't see the value there, right?
Mm,
I think I was in this business for 2 years before I saw the value in being a connector,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
It just didn't occur to me that that was valuable, and it is there. So I think part of what you're offering to people is let me help you find what's valuable within you.
Yes, see it. Because chances are, like an iceberg, it was always there. You probably
Right.
valued it. If you look back in your life, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, I bet you at various stages in your life, that was something you valued about yourself. Maybe that was something others valued about you, but you may not have been
Right.
aware that it was valuable.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me first of all, how do people get in touch with you?
Well, you can email me at
Okay.
Sara at sge-careers.com.
Okay.
There's my website. So you can go to my website, sge-careers.com. And I would love to hear from anyone, even just to chat. There's no obligation. I think it warms my heart when people are open to just saying hello and saying, you know what, that sounds kind of interesting. I'm not really sure I want to buy anything, but I really am curious about what it's about.
Right.
I like to talk about what it's about. I think there's huge value.
Yeah, I think there's huge value as well. And I love what you said. I loved it, that you'd like to chat, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you meet somebody. You and I just had this happen. I met someone last week and I met her and immediately said, "Oh, you and I are going to be friends and I think we're going to do business together. But we're totally going to be friends."
Yeah.
And then I messaged you
Yeah.
and said, "And you have to meet her too."
Yeah.
Right? Because we're all going to be friends. I know it. So.
And sometimes people get in touch with me and I don't hear from them for 6 months. Right? I'll have a conversation. It'll be really interesting. It'll spark something in them. Sometimes it'll spark something in me that they may never know was sparked. And they'll go away and they'll talk to somebody else. And then they'll say, you know what? I think I'm ready to do something now. And it's 6 months later, right? It's fascinating how the mind works. But yeah,
Right.
I like people. So I like to meet people.
Well, and I think sometimes it takes you a while, especially if you said it yourself. You had a great job that you really loved, and
Yeah.
and taking that plunge is hard. And so if you have a great job, and you're like, I'm making a lot of money, and things are okay. Maybe I don't love it every day I go in, but maybe that's okay. It can take you some time to work up that nerve to say, okay, I want to at least explore this.
Well, and some people in perfectly stable jobs. I mean, I think your point of explore this is great. The time to come to me isn't when you've lost your job and you're in a panic.
Right.
I'm not a recruiter, right? So I don't have jobs that I'm, doling out or making connections for people, solely for the purpose of you're out of a job, let me get you one. However, I have a few clients who suspect that there's more for them out there, who suspect, and they have paying jobs right now,
Right.
and they're willing to do a little extra work to position themselves to make the jump. And I think that's where most of my clients tend to be successful, is when they've planned for it versus when it's sort of like the very last moment and they're in a panic.
Right. And I want to go back to something you just said. You have these jobs. Fulfillment matters, right? Fulfillment matters. Whether you're it's filling your soul when you're at work does matter. I mean, it doesn't have to be everything. You don't, maybe you have volunteer positions outside that fill your soul, but it does matter. And before I started this years and years ago, I published a magazine for people who were not happy. And what they did was most of the people in the magazine quit their job and did crazy things like row across the Atlantic. Well, most of us can't afford to do that in the first place. And secondly, we don't need to do something crazy. We really can say, I just want to re-examine where I am now. Right? I want to re-examine where I am now. And maybe you are talking to them and decide they should be there. It's actually you are happy. Maybe there's something more you can do. Or maybe you say to them, no, yeah, let's work together and find what that is.
So, yes, I think a lot of my clients, I have one client I have a number of clients who work within businesses, similar to the work that I did when I was in-house at Marriott. Leaders who recognize the value in having somebody ask them questions and hearing themselves kind of sort through them and be challenged. And some of them decide they want to move to the next level. And some of them decide, no, there's something else there. There's something else that would bring me this gratification. I thought for years I need to switch fields or move to the next level. But when I actually take the time to dig in a little bit, I realize I can fill this need in another way.
Right.
So one of my clients tells me that he pays me to be his friend for an hour, which is kind of funny. He's a great client, but what he means is, nobody listens to him. He's constantly telling people what to do, and he's the boss. And so he doesn't feel that he's really having that dialogue. He doesn't have somebody who can really listen and challenge him to think differently, think better. Where do you want to go with this? What's your goal, right? And I keep him on track a little bit, right? He thinks we're just talking as friends. I have a bit of an agenda, and that is to help him further his own.
Right. I absolutely, I love it. I loved you when I first met you and knew that you were going to add value to my life just by knowing you. And I think that's what you do for your clients as well. So it's been so great to have you on here today. Hold on one second. I'm going to come back to you. Don't go away.
Okay.
All right. Everybody, we will be back next Monday. We're coming back every Monday from now on. That's just our plan. So hopefully you will tune in. We are booked through July. So if you have someone you think should be on the show, introduce me. I have time to meet them between now and July and get them booked, and I would love to do that. So please do introduce me to people who you think should be on the show, even if that's yourself, and don't be shy about that. If you think you have something of value to offer, please reach out. You can reach me. Just go to the podcast. There are multiple ways to reach me. It's pretty easy. I hope that we see you next week, and take care of yourself. And Sara, thank you. Let me come back. Let me find you. There you are. Sara, thank you so much for coming on. This was really, really fun.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Stick around. I'll see everybody else next week. Bye-bye.